Hey guys, welcome to this Blender tutorial. This is part 1 of the product design series. By the end of this tutorial, you're going to have a beautiful 3D model ready to apply textures and create a product animation, which is what we're going to cover in the next 2 videos. So I hope you stick around for those and enjoy this tutorial. Let's get into it. Alright, let's get started modeling the synthesizer. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to select A, X, delete everything, and then I'm going to go into my top view, and the first thing that we need is the reference image. So I've already downloaded those from the Teenage Engineering website. So we're going to grab those. Sweet. Now that this is imported, I'm going to go ahead and start. We're going to build this outer casing of the synthesizer first. So we're going to Shift A, Mesh, Cube. And then to scale this right, I'm just going to go ahead and go into Tab into Edit mode, and then Alt Z to go into X-ray mode. The way this picture is set up on the website is already centered, so when I scale it along the x-axis, I'm going to just scale it till it comes to this outer edge, and then it's already perfectly done on this side also, and it's also centered vertically. So I'm going to zoom in on the middle here, scale in the Y, get that pretty close. Perfect. Go back to the top. So now if we look at it, it's still way too tall. So I'm going to go into the right hand view and then scale in a Z, bring that way down just to something that looks right. Perfect. Now I'm going to go Alt Z out of X-ray mode, and if you look at the picture, I need to get these beveled edges. So what I'm going to do is tab back into edit mode, click 2 to go to edge, select this face or this edge, Shift G. That's going to let me select similar direction. So now I've got these selected. So then I'm just going to go to the top view and then Control B, and then we're just going to give that 5 segments or so right there, just something that looks close. And then the next step that we're going to need to do is we need to create this inset where all the little pads and buttons go. So to do that, I'm going to go Alt Z back into solid view. I'm going to select 3 to click this face, and I'm going to go into top view. I'm going to click I to inset. Now I'm not going to go too far because I don't want the meshes or the vertices of these corners to intersect, but I'm going to go now into Alt Z, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scale it down until it's the correct Y height. So I'm just going to scale this down right there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of these vertices and then just hit GX and bring them over. This is a really close bevel compared to what we need, so I'm just going to move those in and then come over here and do the exact same on this side, which is really close. Perfect. I'm going to go Alt Z back into solid mode, and then I'm going to grab this face that we just created, right click, extrude face along normal. I'm just going to bring that down, and then if I go into my right hand view, Alt Z again, now I can just bring this down to a thickness that kind of makes sense for the keyboard. Now we have the base mesh for the outside, container piece done. The last thing that I want to do before we move on is kind of make this a little bit prettier. So we're going to add a bevel modifier. So we're going to go here. I'm in Blender 4.0, so when I hit add modifier, I can just hit B on my keyboard, and that's going to pull up all the ones with B. I really like that. It's super quick. So then I'm going to just bring that down to something that makes sense. And then more like that. We're going to make this 3 segments, and then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to do Control 2, which will add a second level subdivision surface modifier. We can see the edge, this middle thing in the right in the top to bottom of the mesh is the picture that's showing through, so that's not like a shading error or anything. And then I'm just going to right click and shade that auto smooth. Okay, now that the casing is complete, we're going to start modeling out these keys and buttons. There's 3 to 4 different shapes. There's these 1 round buttons. There's these that have a little space, these long ones. There's this knob and square button here and the speaker, and then we'll get to these knobs and different things later. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to model one of these little square buttons here. So I'm going to zoom in on this one, and I'm going to hold shift and right click in the middle. That's going to put my 3D cursor here. I'm going to do it again, try to get it a little bit closer. And then I'm going to Shift A, Mesh Cube. It's way too big. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Tab A, S, scale down a little bit. And I'm going to go into X-ray mode to try to get this lined up. So I can see I'm off a little bit. I'm going to move everything down in edit mode. That right there is pretty close. And then I've just moved all the vertices relative to the origin. I want the origin to be centered, so I'm just going to right click, put the origin to the geometry. That'll just recenter that. And then what I want to do is I'm going to go into right hand view and I'm going to select these bottom vertices, just bring them up. I can see this line right in here, so I'm just going to move them up pretty close. And then we're just going to bring these down a little bit, something like that. And then we're going to go from the top view. We can see we're going to need these beveled edges here. So I'm going to go into this, select this guy, Shift G, similar direction, do the same trick we did before. Control B, bring those out, make that line up. That looks good. And then I'm going to go out of X-ray mode now. I'm going to add this bevel on this top edge. We're just going to do that non-destructively. So add bevel modifier, bring that way down, something that makes sense. Looks pretty good. We're going to add 3. And then I'm actually going to use this geometry, so I'm just going to go ahead and apply that by holding Control A over that. The next piece we need to do is create this circular piece. The way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to select this top face and inset it. I don't want to go too far because I don't want these vertices to clash with themselves. But once I have this, I'm going to right click. And if you don't have loop tools enabled, you can just enable that in your add-ons. But I'm going to grab loop tools. I'm just going to click circle. It's going to be way too big. But if we scale it back down, we can do that here. And then it's all rotated the wrong way, so I'm just going to rotate with the R key and just bring that out to something like that right there. Looks pretty good. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to add a subdivision surface modifier, Control 2. That's going to make this geometry look really good. And then we're just going to grab this guy and then extrude him upwards. So then if I go to the front hand view, you can tell it's all looking pretty crazy, but we're going to start adding in some support loops. So I'm going to hit Control R and bring that to right here, give that some better shape. It's too tall, so I'm going to go back into edit mode or into X-ray mode, bring this down to something that kind of makes sense for the shape. And then I'm going to go out of X-ray mode. You can tell this needs some work. So I'm going to select this edge, but I'm going to hold Alt and click it, and then I'm going to go to the top and just scale this outward. You can kind of see, it's hard to see probably in the YouTube video, but you can see these edges starting to align. I'm going to bring that pretty much all the way out. And so now if we go out of edit mode, we're getting a little closer, but we're going to go back in, we're going to Control R, we're going to tighten this down here just a little bit. Actually, let's bring it up something like this. See what that looks like. And then I'm going to bring this top face up a little bit. Like that. I'm going to add another control. Oop, not there. I'm going to add another edge loop right here. And that looks pretty good. We're going to right click, shade that auto smooth, and that looks really good. Okay, for these pieces, I'm just going to copy them all around and line them up with all these single pieces. I'll probably just time lapse through this, so yeah, let's do that. Okay, now that we've got our encasing modeled and these little buttons, we're going to go ahead and make these little separate pieces. They're basically the same round button, but the tab is longer. So I'm just going to zoom in on this guy right here. I'm going to Shift D, X, move him over just to where he lines up with that point right there. Now basically I need to move this out, but I need to be careful about the geometry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tab into edit mode, and then I'm going to grab in X-ray mode, go to Alt Z. I'm going to click C. I'm going to grab just these corners and then move them out. Oop, I have something else selected here, so I'm going to go Alt A, deselect everything, C, grab this, GX. There we go. Bring those out till that lines up right there. So now if we get out of X-ray mode, that actually looks really good, so we're just going to go with that. So now that we got these pieces, we're just going to duplicate them out to all these other ones. We have to rotate them 180 degrees around the Z-axis, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, now we've got the small buttons finished. We've got the buttons with a little bit of a tab right here. So now we need to make these right here that kind of have just an elongated shape. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab this guy, Shift D, bring it over. We're going to line it up in the corners. Right about there, looks good. I'm kind of watching these corners to see how square they need to be. This one's going to be easy. We're just going to go Alt Z, 1. We're going to go Alt A to deselect everything. Then all we gotta do is grab half of these, GY, come down here, bring that down right to where it needs to be. Looks like right about there. And boom, we got that one. Oop, hit my space bar. That looks pretty good. So now we're just gonna Shift D, or we're gonna duplicate these across. I'm gonna do that real quick. Okay, now we've got most of the buttons finished. We got these small ones, the ones with the tab, and then these elongated ones. We're gonna go ahead and do this speaker mesh. So I'm gonna set the 3D cursor to the middle of this. We're gonna go Shift A, mesh cube. It's way too big, so Tab A, S to scale it down. I'm gonna go into X-ray mode with Alt Z, and then I'm just gonna scale this to where it looks pretty close to the mesh we have right here. Looks like it's a little too big still. It's also a little bit to the left, so I'm going to GX scoot that over. And then scale it down a little bit, and then GY. That looks pretty good. I'm going to reset the geometry, so right click, set origin, origin to geometry. Go into right hand mode, right hand view, grab these outer bottom vertices, bring them up. And then from the picture, these are kind of supposed to be on level with where these caps are at right here. So we're just going to bring that down. Alt Z, we're going to get out of X-ray mode, tab back into object mode. And now I want to add a bevel modifier to this. So let's just click add modifier, B, bevel. You can see it's way too much. We're going to bring that down. Then we're going to make it have vertices similar to the other one. And bring that up until it matches these other ones. It's a little bit out of place. Let's bring it up. Bring it over. It's pretty close. Okay, we're going to set this to 3. I'm going to go ahead and apply this bevel here. So I'm going to hold Control A while hovering over the bevel to do that. So now it's kind of locked in. Now, what we need to do is we need to make these holes, and the way I'm going to do that is by using a subdivision surface and then cutting out these faces. So what I'm going to do is go out of X-ray mode, tab, grab this face. But before we do that, I'm going to do Control R and set a middle one here, Control B, and then we'd only want 2 vertices. I'm going to go back in the top view, Alt Z. I want this to kind of just be a little bit above this. So I'm going to scale in the Y. Bring it up to something that looks kind of like that right there. We're going to do the same thing this way. Control R, Control B. We're going to make it a similar distance off of that edge right there. What that's going to let us do is now we can go Control R again, and we can basically subdivide this, and then each one will fall into there because it's an even space. Do the same thing on this side. And then, yep, that's it right there. So now what we can do is we can Alt A, deselect everything, click 3 to select faces, and now we're just going to select this middle face, and then I'm going to click Control plus to bring it out to here, and then I'm also going to grab these faces right here. So I'm going to select all these. Now we do have to be careful because when we do that, that is going to select the bottom one, so I'm going to go to the right hand view, bring my brush, and if you hold the middle mouse scroll on your wheel over that, that's going to deselect all those. So now I'm going to go out of X-ray mode. We've got all these faces. I'm going to select I to inset, and then select I to inset again, and then you're just going to bring that down to it's a shape something like this. Now, a secret that's going to help us out is if we go click 1 on these vertices, if we go down here to the data tab, we're going to click add vertex group and then assign. What that's going to do is it's going to let us pick these vertices again if we need it. So now that we've got those assigned, we're going to hit 3 to go back to face selection. We're going to delete those faces. And next to we have squares in all these different areas. But if we tab out of that and then we add a subdivision by going Control 2, you can see these. We get these perfect circles lined up. Now you can see they're kind of infinitely thin right now. So the way we're going to fix that, we're going to add a solidify modifier. And then we're going to bring that down a little bit where it's not so thick. Make sure it's extruding inwards. If you set the offset to outward, it would be extruding up, but we want it to be at -1, so that it's extruding kind of down into the mesh. Now, if we go to the top, they're perfectly sized, but you can tell that these are sharp edges, and it's going to be hard to bevel those the size that they are. So what we can do is we can tell this to solidify it first and then subdivide it, and what that's going to do is going to round out the edge. But you can see our holes are a little bit big, so if we tab into edit mode and then go back to data, click assign or click select, that's going to let us pick these vertices. So then we can just scale them along their individual origins by changing this point here. We can just scale them down. We can get it to exactly match. And then you can tell there's still some pinching and stuff going on. We can just shade this auto smooth, and that's going to do pretty good for now. Alright, sweet. So the last thing to do now is we have to model out these turn knobs. We'll look at the side view in a second, but you can see these are pretty tall, and then there's also another one right here. So we're going to jump into that. If you look at the image editor of the right-hand view from the website, you can tell that these 4 knobs right here and also this one right here, those are all twist knobs, but we have to be a little bit taller to make those. So now we're going to go ahead and make those. I'm just going to click right click and join this back. So let's start with this one right here. We're just going to right click or hold shift and right click in the middle to put our cursor there. Shift A, mesh, cube, tab, into edit mode, scale it down. And then I'm going to go into Alt Z to where I can see a little better. Scale it down again. That looks about right. We're going to bring it to the left a little bit. GX. It's kind of hard to see. Right there, you can tell it's a little low if we go back into edit mode. So we're going to go GY. Bring that up to the top edge. It's a little small. So we're going to bring it right about here. Tab AS. Scale it up a little bit. Bring it up out in the X. Perfect. Now we're going to go into right hand view, same as the other ones. Click one. We're going to select these bottom ones, bring it up to these bottom of these other keys, and then we're going to go back into right view. Grab the top ones, bring them down to the level of these other keys, and then just like the other ones, I'm going to tab out of edit mode. Or actually, I'm going to go back into X-ray. Grab this one, Shift G, select similar direction. Go into the top. We're going to bevel these guys. Gonna give it we'll give it 4 segments. Bring it to similar size as these other ones, right about here. And then just like the other one, we're gonna add a bevel to the outside edge. So add modifier, B bevel. It's too much. Bring this down. Looks good right there. And then we're gonna let's just add 4 segments. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and apply this. And now if we look at it, the next thing that we need this circular little indent ring. I'm assuming that this whole piece rotates and then this knob is connected to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to click tab, we're going to click 3, select this interface, we're going to extrude it, or I to inset it. Same thing as the other one, we don't want to go too far to where these intersect. Right click, loop tools, circle, scale it down, rotate it to where it kind of makes sense for the shape. I'm going to do this and then scale this out a little bit, just to help me run it up. But I inset again, and then what I'm going to do is go Alt Z where I can see where I'm at. So scale that with S, click I to inset again. Actually, let's go ahead and just leave this. We're going to make this a separate piece. So now to make this little spinning shape, we've got this face still selected. So let's go extrude face along normals. Let's just bring this down a little bit. We'll say that this is, half as much to where this piece can sit in. Now we've got this modeled. Let's go ahead and try to add a bevel to this. So add B bevel. It's way too big. So we're going to bring this way down. I'm going to give this 3 segments. And then on top of that, we're going to add a subdivision modifier. Go Control 2. It's going to make this geometry look nice. Sweet. So that is the outer portion. We go ahead and right click and shade that auto smooth. So this is the outer portion for this. Now we're going to need to add this inner piece. So while we've got, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to recenter the geometry in case I moved it. So set origin, order to geometry. And now we can see our 3D cursor is right in line. So what I'm actually going to do is go Shift S, cursor to selected. That's going to make sure we're right in the middle. And now I'm going to add in a cylinder. So Shift A, mesh, cylinder. Before we click anything, let's go over here and let's make this 64 just so we don't have to worry about subdivision as much. This is a high poly model. So we're going to tab into edit mode, scale this down, keep going. We're going to go into Alt Z. We want this to kind of be this inside edge, so we're just going to scale it down, something like that right here. Now what we can do is we can grab these bottom edges here, or these bottom vertices. This faint line right here is where the other thing, or the other bottom that we made was, so we're just going to bring this down, something close. And then the top we're also going to make in line with the rest of it. So just for now, we're just going to bring this down, something like this. We're going to go out of edit mode. We're going to add a, let's see here. Let's just go ahead and bevel it with the bevel modifier. So add bevel, bring this down, and add 3 segments. Shade auto smooth. Let's add 4. Yep, I fixed that shading here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this over to where we can see our reference image again. I'm going to click this, click I, go right here. We're just going to look at the side view. Basically, tell this looks like it's a knob that comes up. It has this rough shape as far as the grid. We're actually going to do that in the shading later on. But we're going to make that part of this piece. So what we're going to do is we're just going to select this top face by clicking 3. I to inset, we're going to go Alt Z to where we can kind of get it lined up. Oh, it has this little detail. Let's do that. Scale this up right here. And then we're going to go out of edit or out of X-ray mode. Let's just right click, extrude face along normal. Let's bring that little detail up. Something like that. Go back into Alt Z. We got this top face selected. I'm going to I to inset it again, bring it to right here. Now I got that done. And then this is just a little detail. We're going to click E to extrude it up just a little bit. Probably hit Z, make sure it's right here. And then I'm going to select the vertices by hitting 1 on the keyboard. And then I'm going to go back into top hand view. I'm going to click E and then left or click escape and then click S to scale them outward. So now we kind of got this little detail. Then we're just going to extrude this up, something like this. And then we're going to extrude upwards again. That's going to be that middle face right there. Extrude it up to make the top. We're going to go ahead and just do this manually. I'm going to click 2, Control, or I could add an X-ray, Control B. Make that top bevel the way it's supposed to be. And then we're going to go into Alt Z here. Grab this top. Grab the top face of this again, add an X-ray, back into X-ray. We can just click I to inset it. We can see where this outer edge is. It needs to be inset a little bit, so we're going to inset it a little bit right here to the middle of that highlight. Then we're just going to go to the right view, extrude in the Z, kind of match that shape right there. 2, Control or add an X-ray mode, Control B. Add a nice bevel there. And that is both of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select C, and that's going to, when I click in the middle, that's going to grab both of these guys. So then I'm going to just bring Shift D and X. I'm going to move these 4 over. Okay, now we've got all the small tab pieces finished. We've made these 4 circular knob things here. The last 2 pieces are this LCD screen and then this little button / knob. If you look at the picture, it's the exact same knob as these other ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this guy right here, top view, Shift D, bring it over. If you look at the reference image, this one doesn't have a circular base, so we're just going to kind of get rid of this bigger stuff right here. So I'm going to go into right hand view, Alt Z to go into X-ray, Alt A to deselect everything, click 1 to click the vertices. I'm just going to grab everything right here on this bottom with the C brush, delete those vertices. And then I'm just going to grab this outer edge right here, hold Alt. We're going to extrude in the Z, bring it down a little bit. And then I'm just going to click I to inset. Oh, that doesn't work. We're going to click E, escape, S, something like that. And then I could just click F to fill that in. Now I could just bring this down. I need to line this up pretty good. Now that we've got this little knob in place, we need to model this holder for it. So I'm going to put the 3D cursor in the middle, Shift A, Mesh Cube, Tab, into edit mode, scale it down. You can see it's too far to the left. So we're going to scale or move it along the X-axis. That was good right there. Scale it along the Y. I'm going to move it down a little bit, try to center it up. We're going to reset the geometry, so set origin to the geometry. Go into right hand view, grab these bottom vertices, just bring it up, bring these down. Now before we do anything else, I know that I'm going to basically need 2 sides of this, so I'm going to do Control R and add in a loop cut in the middle. And then I also know that I'm going to need 2 faces within this, so I'm going to click 3 to go into face select, out of Alt Z. I'm going to grab this, just inset this. And then same thing here, just inset this one. Grab these, Shift G, direction, that's going to give us those. We don't need these 2 in the middle, so let's make sure we deselect those. I'm going to go into Alt Z, edit or X-ray mode, Control B. It's giving us that weird bevel, but that's okay. Match that up. That looks good. I'm going to need more geometry to make this into a circle, so I'm going to do Control R and set 1 here, Control R and set 1 here. And then I'm going to grab these vertices right here, like this. And then 2 loop tools into a circle. That's going to make this shape right here. And then basically what we need to do is I'm going to go add Alt-Z. I'm going to hide this for now. Tab. We're just going to go in here. We're going to grab these 3 faces and just delete the faces. It's going to give us the whole. And then similarly over here, let's just grab these 2 faces here. Click 3, delete the face. That's going to get rid of this line that we don't need in the middle. So then if we grab all of these right here, we can click F to make one face. And then we can extrude this. So I'm just going to inset this and then extrude along normal. Go into 3, edit. Extrude faces along normal. Let's just bring that up. And then I'm going to grab this outer edge here and we're going to manually bevel that. So let's go Control B, just bring that down to something that looks similar to the other ones. Make sure we don't intersect any of our geometry anywhere. And then I'm going to also do that to the bottom. So I'm just going to go to the right, Alt-Z, click 1, Alt-A, grab these bottom faces. I don't want this middle face, so I'm just going to click C, get rid of it. Control B, doesn't really matter, it's not going to be visible on the bottom. Do like that. So now if we add a subdivision surface, that's going to give us something pretty close to what we're looking for. You can tell this shape kind of looks oblong, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tab in edit mode, Alt-Z, and then I'm going to select all these vertices with brush tool. And then now that I got them selected, I'm going to go out of edit mode and then scale on X, kind of make this look a little bit more like we're expecting it to. We can go back into this, Control R. Let's just add a loop cut here to try to tighten this up. That's going to be too tight. Let me try grabbing this thing and scaling it out, see what that looks like. Not scale this quite so much. Right about there. That looks pretty good. So before we do anything else, I'm going to grab this edge right here all the way around. I'm just going to extrude that in the Z straight down. Something like that. And then I'm going to hit 1, E, and then S to bring that in. Something like that. And I'm just going to fill that in. So we're pretty happy with that. We can tell there's a little bit of shading error, but it's not really going to be visible. So we're going to Alt-H, bring that back. And then we're going to make this fit. Let's go Alt-Z. You can tell that it's a little bit too big. So let's grab this edge here. Grab all these. We're just going to bring those in until it kind of looks like it fits. And then we're going to bring this over till it fits. All right, the last piece that we're going to look at is creating this LCD screen. It's very similar to what we've done before. We're just going to shift right click in the middle, Shift A, mesh cube, scale this down, Alt Z. Just going to bring this somewhat close, GX. You can tell that I've got an equal gap on both sides, so just going to scale this in X, something like that. Scale into Y. That was pretty good. Same as before. Grab one. Go into X-ray mode, grab these pieces, bring it to the bottom, grab these, bring them down to here. We're going to do the same trick, grab this, Shift G, select similar direction. Just going to manually bevel this to match the other ones. Something like that right there looks good. We're going to go out of X-ray mode, add another bevel modifier, bring it down. Give it 3 segments, and then we can now add a subdivision surface modifier. Gives that good geometry. I'm going to hide this reference image for a sec. And that is it. We have now modeled out the Teenage Engineering OP1 synthesizer. In the next 2 videos, we're going to go through the texturing, creating all the shading for these pieces, and then we're going to also have a video about animation, lighting, do some render setup. We'll probably clean up some different pieces of this as we go just to make it work. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. On the next video, we're going to get into texturing and shading.